There's a kind of silence that feels like death. When the phone stops ringing, when the invitations dry up, when the people who promised they'd never leave are suddenly nowhere to be found. You look around and realize you're standing alone in a room that used to be crowded with voices, faces, promises. And the question that haunts you in the dark is simple. Did I do something wrong? But what if I told you that the emptiness you're experiencing isn't abandonment? What if the clearing out isn't punishment, but preparation? What if God is removing people from your life, not because you're losing, but because you're being positioned? Stay with me, because by the end of this message, you'll understand that sometimes the greatest blessing looks like the greatest loss. Sometimes God empties your hands so He can fill them with something you could never have carried if you were still holding on to what He's asking you to release. The pruning God does in secret, John 15:2 declares, "Every branch that bears fruit, He prunes so that it will be even more fruitful." Notice what happens here. The branch that's already producing gets cut. Not the dead branch, not the diseased one, the one that's bearing fruit. Because God doesn't prune failure. He prunes success that's about to become greatness. He removes what's good so He can introduce what's great. Think about a vineyard in late winter. The farmer walks through with shears, cutting away branches that look perfectly healthy. To an untrained eye, it seems cruel, wasteful. But the farmer knows something the branch doesn't. Those secondary growths are stealing nutrients from the primary vine. They create the illusion of abundance while preventing true fruitfulness. So He cuts, not to harm, but to focus the life force toward what matters most. That's what's happening in your life right now. God is cutting away relationships that look fine on the surface, but are quietly draining the calling He placed inside you. Some people were never meant to go where you're going, not because they're bad people, but because their assignment was for a season, and that season has ended. When God starts removing people, He's not punishing you. He's protecting the fruit He's about to produce through you. What feels like rejection is really redirection. Look at Moses in the wilderness. Exodus chapter 3 shows us something remarkable. Before the burning bush, before the miracles, before leading millions out of Egypt, Moses spent 40 years alone with sheep. 40 years. He went from prince of Egypt to shepherd of nothing, hidden on the backside of a desert where nobody knew his name. Every friend from the palace was gone. Every connection, every advantage, stripped away. And yet, that wilderness wasn't exile. It was education. Because the man who tried to deliver Israel in his own strength at age 40 had to become the man who could deliver Israel in God's strength at age 80. The removal wasn't rejection. It was recalibration. God had to strip away every human prop so Moses would learn to lean entirely on divine presence. Deuteronomy 31:6 promises, "The Lord Himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you." When people leave, God doesn't. When crowds disappear, His presence intensifies. You think you've been abandoned, but you've actually been chosen for an encounter that requires isolation. Because some revelations only come in solitude. Some strength only develops when human support systems collapse and you discover that God alone is enough. The people you lost were blocking what's coming. Here's a truth that will set you free. Not everyone who leaves is a loss. Some departures are deliverances. Some endings are answers to prayers you didn't know how to pray. You've been asking God for breakthrough, for promotion, for the next level. But you can't carry old relationships into new dimensions. The weight will crush you. Think of David in 1 Samuel. When he was anointed king, his own family mocked him. When he ran from Saul, his closest companions abandoned him. He wrote in Psalm 27:10, "Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me." David learned something in caves that he never could have learned in crowds. He learned that human approval is fickle, but divine approval is unshakable. He learned to stop performing for people and start worshiping in secret, and that worship in hiding became the foundation for a kingdom in public. The removal you're experiencing isn't random. God is clearing space. He's making room, because what He's about to bring into your life is so significant, so sacred, so anointed that it cannot coexist with what was there before. You cannot pour new wine into old wineskins. You cannot build a new foundation on cracked ground. So God clears the land. He removes the crowd. He empties the room so you can finally hear His voice without interference. Isolation is the womb of transformation. Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist, understood this deeply. Luke 1:24 tells us that after she conceived, she remained in seclusion for 5 months. Not because she was ashamed, because what God was forming inside her was too holy for public consumption during its development. Some blessings need to be hidden before they can be revealed. Some promises need to gestate in silence before they can be celebrated in public. Your isolation right now isn't a shelf where God has placed you to forget about you. It's a womb where He's forming something that will change everything. The same God who met Hagar in the wilderness and said, "You are the God who sees me," in Genesis 16:13, that same God sees you right now. He hasn't looked away. He's looking closer than ever, because what He's creating requires His complete attention. This is where transformation happens, not in the noise of affirmation, but in the silence of preparation. Not in the comfort of familiar voices, but in the discomfort of being alone with God. Because when you have no one else to lean on, you finally learn to lean fully on Him. When there's no one else to impress, you finally learn to rest in His approval. When the applause stops, you discover that His pleasure was always enough. The loneliness you feel is teaching you something eternal. 2 Corinthians 1-9 explains, "Indeed, we felt we had received the sentence of death, but this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God." Sometimes God lets you feel completely alone, so you'll discover He's all you need. Not because He's cruel, but because He's preparing you for assignments where human support will be unreliable, and only His presence will sustain you. Paul knew this. Philippians 3-8 records his declaration, "I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord." Paul lost everything: reputation, position, comfort, friends. And in the losing, he gained the only thing that truly matters. He discovered that knowing Christ wasn't just better than everything else. It was worth more than everything else combined. That's where you are right now. God is teaching you the value of His presence. He's showing you that when you have Him, you have everything. When you lose everything but Him, you haven't lost anything that matters. This season of removal isn't showing you what you lack. It's revealing what you possess: divine companionship, unshakable foundation, a relationship that cannot be taken away because it was never dependent on anyone else's participation. What God removes he replaces with something greater. Job understood this better than anyone. Job 42:10 declares, "After Job had prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before." Notice the sequence. First, isolation, then loss, then testing, then intercession, and finally, restoration that exceeded anything Job had known before. God didn't just give back what was taken. He doubled it. That's his pattern. Isaiah 61:7 promises, "Instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion." Instead of the people who left, God is preparing connections that will actually carry your calling. Instead of relationships built on convenience, he's orchestrating covenant partnerships that will last. Instead of surface-level friendships that couldn't weather storms, he's bringing divine alignments that will stand through fire. But here's the key. You cannot receive what's coming if your hands are still clutching what's gone. You cannot walk into your future while dragging your past behind you. So God removes. He clears. He strips away everything that would prevent you from receiving what he's already prepared. The removal isn't cruelty. It's mercy, because what he has planned is so much better than what you're mourning. When everyone leaves, God walks closer. Hebrews 13:5 gives us this unshakable promise. "Never will I leave you. Never will I forsake you." When people promise forever and deliver temporary, God promises eternal and keeps his word. When human loyalty fails, divine faithfulness remains. When the crowd disperses, the king draws near. This is the revelation hidden in your loneliness. God isn't distant. He's intimate. He hasn't forgotten you. He's focusing on you. The emptiness around you isn't absence. It's presence. Divine presence. Holy presence. The kind of presence that transforms everything it touches. Because when you're finally quiet enough to hear his whisper, when you're finally still enough to feel his hand, when you're finally alone enough to recognize his voice, everything changes. Jesus modeled this. Luke 5:16 tells us, Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Before every major decision, before every miracle, before the cross itself, he withdrew. Not because he was weak, but because he knew the source of his strength. He knew that intimacy with the Father was more valuable than applause from the crowd. He knew that what happened in secret would sustain what was required in public. You're not being set aside, you're being set apart. The Hebrew word for holy is kodesh. It means separated, set apart, consecrated for sacred use. When God removes everyone from your life, he's not setting you aside as useless. He's setting you apart as holy. He's consecrating you for something that requires complete dedication. You're not on the shelf, you're on the altar. Jeremiah 1-5 declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Your isolation isn't accidental. It's intentional, purposeful, divine strategy. God is marking you for an assignment that cannot be diluted by crowds or diminished by opinions. What he's calling you to is so specific, so anointed, so kingdom critical, that it requires your complete focus and his complete control. This is sacred ground you're standing on. The loneliness you feel is holy loneliness. The silence surrounding you is sacred silence. The emptiness before you is consecrated space where God is about to do something that will echo through generations. Don't despise this moment. Don't rush through this season, because what God is building in secret will be revealed in power, and the world will know that it wasn't human effort, but divine orchestration that brought it to pass. Your response determines your outcome. Here's what matters now. How will you respond to the removal? Will you become bitter or better? Will you close your heart or open it wider to God? Will you chase after what left or press into who remains? Because this moment is a test, not to see if you'll survive, but to see who you'll become in the process. 1 Peter 5:10 assures us, "And the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast." The suffering is real. The pain is valid, but it's temporary. What God is building in you through this season is permanent. The strength, the character, the unshakable faith, those things last forever. So keep praying when it feels like God isn't listening. Keep worshiping when you don't feel like singing. Keep trusting when nothing makes sense. Because on the other side of this stripping is a revealing. On the other side of this loneliness is an encounter. On the other side of this removal is a restoration so complete, so abundant, so undeniable, that you'll thank God for every person he took away to make room for what he was bringing in. You are not abandoned. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. You are being prepared for something greater than you've ever imagined. And when God finishes the work he's doing in this hidden season, you won't just walk into your destiny. You'll run into it, stronger, wiser, and more dependent on him than ever before. If this message speaks to your spirit, declare this boldly. God is removing to replace. God is clearing to build. God is emptying to fill. Say it until your heart believes it. Because when everyone leaves and God remains, you discover the greatest truth of all. He was always enough, and he always will be.